The mass return of OFWs, a global crisis in 2025. What if one day the lifeline of millions is severed? Imagine waking up to find 10 nations shutting their doors to Filipino workers, a sudden move forcing over 300,000 OFWs to return home in 2025. These aren't voluntary departures. These are heartbreaking evictions from countries where Filipinos have built lives, contributed to economies, and nurtured dreams for decades. The numbers are staggering, the stories gut-wrenching, and the impact unimaginable. From sweeping labor policies to abrupt deportations, this mass displacement could redefine the future of the global Filipino community. The country ranked #1 will leave you in tears and raise questions about fairness, gratitude, and humanity. In 2025, Malaysia implemented the Malaysian First Employment Policy, a decision prioritizing local workers over foreign labor. The policy has disproportionately impacted Filipino workers, particularly in the retail and service sectors. Thousands of work permits have been revoked almost overnight, leaving many scrambling to arrange their departure within a strict 30-day deadline. The abruptness of the enforcement has caused an uproar, with many families financially unprepared to return home. OFWs, who were integral to Malaysia's economy for decades, now face financial instability and mental stress. The lack of transitional support has further magnified the challenges, with many workers left without time to arrange alternative employment or settle their affairs. Communities that once thrived on mutual respect and cooperation are now fraying as migrant workers are pushed out. Malaysia's new policy underscores a delicate balance, supporting local employment while failing to recognize the invaluable contributions of migrant workers. For thousands of Filipinos, this shift has shattered their dreams of stability, forcing them to confront an uncertain future back home. For years, Taiwan's industrial and manufacturing sectors thrived thanks to Filipino workers who were a backbone of these industries. However, 2025 marked a drastic change. The government announced a 60% reduction in factory worker quotas, leaving thousands of Filipinos unemployed. To make matters worse, a newly introduced skills verification system raised barriers, with many previously qualified workers now unable to meet the stringent requirements. For those unable to secure employment, returning home has become the only option, an outcome often accompanied by significant financial and emotional strain. Many workers, already burdened with debts incurred to secure their initial contracts, now face an uncertain future with no clear path forward. Adding to the turmoil is Taiwan's mandatory return policy after contract completion, which limits options for workers seeking to renew or find new opportunities. Families dependent on remittances from OFWs in Taiwan are left devastated as their main source of income is abruptly cut off. The ripples of these policies extend far beyond the workers themselves, affecting countless lives. South Korea's decision to phase out E9 visas in 2025 has created a seismic shift for Filipino workers. These visas were vital for employment in sectors such as manufacturing and manual labor. Now, the sudden elimination of these opportunities has left thousands of OFWs in limbo. To compound the issue, the rise of factory automation has drastically reduced the demand for foreign labor, sidelining workers who once contributed significantly to South Korea's economic success. Despite years of dedicated service, Filipinos are finding themselves edged out by technological advancements. Language barriers have also become an obstacle, as stricter requirements have made it harder for OFWs to qualify for the few remaining jobs. For many, the dream of financial stability in South Korea has ended abruptly, leaving them no choice but to return home to an uncertain future. Japan's caregiving trainee program was once a beacon of hope for thousands of Filipinos, providing steady income while supporting the country's aging population. In 2025, this program was terminated, closing a critical employment pathway. This decision left many OFWs in despair, as caregiving had been one of the few stable industries available to them. In addition to the program's termination, Japan introduced a new tax system targeting foreign workers, increasing financial burdens for those already struggling with the country's high cost of living. Stricter visa renewal policies further restricted opportunities, reducing quotas and raising standards for staying in the country. For many Filipinos, the dream of building a better future in Japan has come to an abrupt end. Their contributions to Japan's society and economy are being overlooked as the country tightens its immigration policies, leaving OFWs with no choice but to return home. Kuwait's mass deportation of domestic workers in 2025 has disproportionately impacted Filipino OFWs, who have long been a vital part of the country's households. This sudden policy shift has uprooted thousands of workers, many of whom have spent decades serving Kuwaiti families. Adding to the challenges is Kuwait's introduction of strict age restrictions, which disqualify workers in their late 40s and beyond from continuing employment. Many long-term OFWs, despite their dedication and years of service, now find themselves forced to leave without proper recognition or support. To make matters worse, Kuwait's zero-tolerance policy on overstays has led to severe penalties, leaving many unable to navigate the new rules. The emotional and financial toll on these workers is immense, with many returning home feeling undervalued and discarded. Hong Kong has long been a destination for Filipino domestic helpers, but 2025 brought sweeping changes. A reduction in the domestic helper quota has left many workers unemployed, while new regulations, including higher minimum income requirements for employers, have made it harder for families to hire or retain helpers. Housing restrictions have further complicated matters, with stricter enforcement making it difficult for OFWs to maintain decent living conditions. For thousands of Filipino workers, these changes mark the end of a stable chapter in their lives. Despite years of loyal service, many Filipinos are being forced to leave Hong Kong, returning home with little to show for their sacrifices. The once reliable lifeline of employment in Hong Kong is now a fading dream for many OFWs. Bahrain's phase-out of Filipino workers in 2025 is a stark example of shifting labor priorities. Contract non-renewals, family visa cancellations, and restrictions on property ownership have left many OFWs with no choice but to leave. For families who have built lives in Bahrain, these policies have been devastating. The inability to renew contracts or secure stable housing has disrupted countless lives, forcing families to separate or return to the Philippines together. Despite their invaluable contributions to Bahrain's economy, Filipino workers are now being excluded from the workforce. This decision underscores the challenges faced by migrant workers navigating policies that increasingly prioritize local citizens over foreign talent. Saudi Arabia's Saudization initiative has left thousands of OFWs displaced, as 12 key sectors are now reserved exclusively for Saudi nationals. Domestic worker roles, once a reliable source of employment for Filipinos, have also been restricted, forcing many to return home. Adding to these challenges are limitations on religious practices and community events, which have further eroded the sense of belonging for OFWs. For many, the Saudi dream has ended in disappointment as opportunities dry up and communities are dismantled. The UAE's Emiratization policy has significantly impacted Filipino workers, particularly in key sectors like banking, retail, and government. Family visa restrictions and the localization of industries have further limited opportunities for OFWs, forcing many to leave the country. For thousands of families, this marks the end of a chapter filled with hope and ambition. The high cost of living and stringent regulations have made it impossible for many to remain, leaving dreams of a stable life in the UAE unfulfilled. Qatar's workforce reduction following the 2022 World Cup has hit Filipino workers the hardest. Construction, hospitality and retail, industries where many OFWs found employment, are now prioritizing Qatari nationals. To make matters worse, a complete ban on hiring new Filipino workers has been implemented, effectively closing the door on any future opportunities. For thousands of OFWs, this marks the end of their journey in Qatar. Families are left scrambling to rebuild their lives back home, facing an uncertain future. What's the biggest challenge for OFWs returning home? Is it the lack of local job opportunities, the emotional toll of reintegration, or the loss of financial security? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. To see how Filipinos inspire the world despite these challenges, check out our previous video, 12 countries trying to be like Filipinos, but failed miserably. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories that matter.